Amy Morgan with the Marriage Initiative. I am so delighted to introduce Mary and Dave Gothi to you today. Mary and Dave have spent the past 27 years working with couples. Despite their disparate backgrounds, Mary's a psychotherapist with graduate degrees in counseling and clinical psychology, and Dave's a chemical engineer. They became certified leaders for the Marriage Dynamics Institute in 2000 and began leading a New Beginning weekend workshops for those in crisis. They developed their own resource, The Significant Marriage, in 2010 to prevent couples from getting to that crisis point. Prior to working with marriages through Marriage Dynamics, Mary cared for missionaries and other expatriates overseas with Heartstring Resources after spending 7 years serving with Young Life in Austria and Eastern Europe. Dave spent 35 years in engineering operations and quality control. In 2004, the Gothis founded the nonprofit Sunshine Kids International, which helps needy children at St. Catherine's of Siena Orphanage in Mumbai, which is Dave's hometown. Mary and Dave, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, you have such interesting backgrounds, and in fact, you still travel all over the world. Tell us a little of your history and how you met.
Okay. We met at church.
Yeah, we met at our church. Through my, this is our second marriage, actually, and which is also the reason why we do what we do. We met at our church through some friends, and it didn't take us long, actually, to figure out that we belonged together, and we got married pretty quickly. Yeah. So since then, I mean, a little history in terms of how all this started is Mary always wanted me to do something with her. She wanted us to do something together. And I kept telling her, Mary, I'm an engineer. I think God put me into your life just to kind of be supportive of you financially or whatever that takes. And she just never gave up. And thank God she didn't. Because finally one day I said, what are you thinking? She said, well, maybe we can work with couples. I go, Mary, I'm an engineer. Let me tell you again. She goes, well, think about it. So I did. And I said, what are you thinking about when you say working with couples? She finally said that, okay, we can just invite couples from our church into our home, read a book and talk about it. I said, oh, I can do that. But that's how our marriage ministry started. That was the beginning of everything.
Well, and it's so amazing how God works because so we lived in Massachusetts for 5 years, and one of the resources we had used was Willard Harley's His Needs, Her Needs, and just a book that we loved because it seemed really relevant. And when we moved to California, we got involved in a church and went to the marriage pastor and said, we're just available if you ever need help. And she said, well, I'm actually looking for people to get trained to work with Marriage Dynamics Institute to lead their dynamic marriage course, which is based upon His Needs, Her Needs.
Yes.
I thought, well, that's pretty cool because we definitely can do that. But then we started also leading a new beginning with them because, neither of us had wanted our divorce, but it's not necessarily, one person's decision. And so we felt like that's something we really had a passion for, to keep couples from ending up where we were. And so we got trained and started working with them to lead a new beginning for couples in crisis. And like you said, we've been doing that since 2000. But somewhere along the line, probably maybe 2009 or so, I think we reached a point where we were like, we need to stop couples from ever needing a new beginning. We need to do something preventative. So we started to dream and pray, and I started to write.
Yeah, Mary wrote everything except the design book. The design book is mine.
That's an engineer's baby.
But I had to take all her information and transpose it into the design book. But she wrote everything in the workbook, all of that material. It's an amazing book.
I pulled it together.
Yes.
Because I wrote some of it from things we'd love to teach, like what does it mean to live by Philippians 4 in your marriage? What does it mean to have a merciful marriage, to forgive what's undeserved? But then we also pulled together some of our favorite resources, like Harley's Needs, and Gottman has some wonderful materials, and just wanted to put what we thought was the best of the best together, and present it in such a way that couples walked away not only with an enriched marriage, but understanding that you protect your marriage so that you can live the purpose God has for you as a couple.
And we've all attended seminars, right? And when we attend it and we walk away, just we're so pumped up about it. We feel so good and so great about it, right? But two months later, 3 months later, we tend to forget about it. We didn't want that for couples, which is why we developed the design book. We wanted couples to be able to walk away with plans that in hand before they left the seminar, that they have some plans that talked about, okay, what are we going to do to make our marriage better? What are we going to do for God's purpose for us? And how do we plan that out? And what are our dreams? And how do we fulfill those dreams and plan those out also? So they walk away with those plans in hand so that they stand a much better chance of following through with those plans rather than just forgetting about it.
Well, I love that. Your story of wanting, just starting, with a couple, doing a book. I think that's something that our marriage champions can really relate to, because I think a lot of them are at that place right now. And then you are inspiring them really to take that next step. As you became trained, you recognized some, best quality materials, and then just felt God call you to correlate that and to bring it together and to put that in the significant marriage. You have a few things that are really kind of unique to your resources in this. Tell us what is a significant marriage? What does that even mean?
It means a couple choosing to be intentional, to live on mission, whatever that is. We have couples come from all over the world, and we don't have any sort of agenda as to what they're going to discover. But we ask couples to come with just an open heart. What is God saying to you? And what unique purpose does he have for you? We were involved with Drs. Les and Leslie Parrott in a different marriage endeavor years ago, and we both left that at the same time and stayed connected. And I was just finishing writing The Significant Marriage when Les was finishing up his book, Love Styles, which he has since updated. But he said, you can use that. And they worked with the DISC people to create a marital inventory. And so we help couples discover, who are you? What's your personality? How can you complete each other? And why is it good that you're together? And that really helps couples understand that they each bring so many different things to the table of the purpose that God has for them. And then how is that going to be expressed in the mission that God has for you?
Another way to look at it is that to have a healthy marriage, you have all the tools, and that's great, and you have a healthy marriage. To have a significant marriage, like Mary's talking about, you have to go that additional step, figuring out what is our purpose beyond ourselves, so that we can give back to the world a little bit of what God has given us.
Well, the fact that you guys, that especially Mary, you have such a missionary background, that's not surprising at all that you would have, a vision for, and a dream for something significant, something different, and that to bring that purpose. But I do think that that's something that really that makes your resources unique, that you focus on that. And I love that you mentioned dreams, that when couples, you said you would see couples, they'd come to the crisis weekend bitter because somebody had a dream and the other one. Talk a little bit about that and the importance of dreaming together.
Well, a lot of times marriages suffer because their dreams have not been fulfilled. And then they don't know what to do with it and how to fulfill those dreams. A lot of couples that come to in the beginning, that is one of the reasons as to why they are there. Which is why it's so important to make sure that couples understand what are their dreams. If they've not been fulfilled, what are they, and what are you going to do to fulfill them? So that when you walk away with your plans again, right, you stand so much of a better chance to fulfill those dreams than otherwise.
Well, and we tell couples too that, sometimes God will ask you to lay down your dream for a while to help your spouse fulfill their dream. Which is what happened with us. We lived in Massachusetts, and I loved being there with our kids and our new grandbaby, and thought we'd live there forever. And God called him through his work to move to California, and I really didn't want to go because I wanted to stay where we were. And God, I told God one day, I said, okay, if this is where you want Dave, you need to change my heart. And it was instantaneous. We were in California for a trip, and all of a sudden I could see that in California or in Massachusetts, it was freezing cold and the trees were dead, and California had flowers blooming at the end of November. And I thought, okay, this is nice. I could do this. But God, I just said, okay, if the company asked you to move, then we can go. And because I think Dave would have given up his dream if I had said, no, I can't leave our kids behind. But it was so cool how God took care of all that from my mama's heart. Because by the time we moved to California the following August, all of our children had ended up moving away for different reasons, marriage, new jobs. And I would have been all alone in our house in the woods. God knew that wasn't going to be good for me either. But he knew that he had purpose waiting for us in California. That's where we birthed both of our ministries. That's where the people were that got excited about it and wanted to become a part of it. And I think we would have missed so much if I'd been stubborn. So we just try to encourage couples. Your dreams are important, whatever they are, and plan for those to help make them happen. Listen to the Lord as to what he wants for you each step of the way. And then don't be afraid that if you have to lay down your dream for a while, your turn will come. But it may even be better than you had even imagined in the first place.
And sometimes your dreams are joint dreams.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Like your dream that you guys do together, your mission where God has used you, founding the Sunshine Kids International.
Right.
Let's talk about that a little bit, and then we'll circle back, because I want to talk about the design book, but I think it was so interesting as you're talking about purpose and dreams and how God is using you as a couple, because that's really a hallmark of your content, is to think other than just the tools and the his needs and the her needs, and those are important and significant, but the why, for the things that God is calling you to. So let's talk a little bit about the things that God has called you to.
To start out with, what you're saying is so correct, because our purpose really completes us ultimately. The way it started was right after Mary and I got married, we started going to India. And suddenly, she'd be out on the streets and just talking to the people on the streets, the poor people and whatnot, and the kids, she's feeding them. I grew up in India for the first 21 years, and for me, that was a bit uncomfortable. So I said, Mary, what are you doing? She said, well, we need to do something. I go, yeah? Do you know how big the problem is? She goes, yeah, we need to do our part. And that's the thing that I had never understood, right? That we can do our part.
And so that's really how we started Sunshine Kids.
Yeah. And the very, very next day, or maybe a week later, we went and saw Brother Joseph. Brother Joseph is the director of the orphanage, and we've been supporting them ever since. And it's been the best thing we have done.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Kids who were born on a sidewalk are now have finished university and have jobs as graphic designers and all kinds of amazing things. We're so proud of them.
And the school is impacting a total of about 1,200 children. It's unbelievable what happens there.
It's and what has happened for us, just sharing that mission together, is another reason why we created a Significant Marriage. We wanted to prevent people from having to go through what we through, meeting in the beginning, but we also felt like having that shared mission, that shared purpose, was so good for our marriage that we wanted to set couples on mission. And I will never forget, when we moved back to Indiana after living in California for about 15 years, we came here to be near kids. And I heard two pastors talking one time at a cafe, and we were trying to find a place to hold our seminar. And the Holy Spirit just kept tapping on my shoulder. You need to go talk to them. And, as a woman, you don't go interrupt strange men. Say, hey, how you doing? After about an hour, I was writing. And so I was working on my computer, and finally I was like, okay, all right, I'll go talk to them. So I went over and talked to our pastor, Josh, and I said, excuse me, I'm just so sorry to interrupt you, but we've just moved to town. We have a marriage resource. We're just looking for a place that would be willing to just give us a space to you. And he just looked at me and said, I want to talk to you. The next day we met with him, and we've been a part of that church ever since. And they really believe in living in mission. That's what their purpose is all
Yeah,
about. And so God had
exactly
just
right.
bonded our hearts and knew the
Yeah.
church, it's called Mercy Road, where we were supposed to be.
Right.
And it actually wasn't where we'd expected to go when we came back to Indiana. But God knew that we needed to be in a place that was going to help us empower couples to live on mission. And it's so fun to just watch couples get the message and be like we'll even have couples get in touch with us and say, we figured out our purpose. This is what we're going to be doing. And it's anything from we want to get involved in, financial ministry to we're going to help with children's ministry, or we're actually going to the mission field. It's different for everybody.
Well, you can see it on your faces, and I'm sure that the marriage champions can see it too. That just that shared that joy that you can see when you're doing something and know that God is using you, and know we all want to have purpose. We all want to make a difference, and how wonderful when that purpose is shared and it's making your marriage stronger as well as the world a better place.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We teach planning because that is one of the things that makes us unique. And you said you want to talk about the design book. It is unusual. I hate Excel spreadsheets, but Dave loves them. And, couples, like he said, walk away with these plans. This is what we want to do for the Lord. This is how we're going to grow our marriage. But as much as we teach that, that's not how we grew the significant marriage. God grew it very organically through people wanting to spread the word. They would come and be excited and be like, I want these for my people. I want this message for my church or my family. And that's really how we ended up taking it places that we had never expected to go, because God saw a far bigger vision for it than we had ever.
There are certain things you just can't plan. There's no way you can plan and say, oh, I think we're going to go here and do something. I think we're going to go. There's no way to plan that. Someone has got to help us do that. And that's how it's grown.
Well, let's talk about that. You guys have just gotten back from a trip,
Right.
and it's really inspiring again for our champions to see how God has used as you lead for a group of couples, and then that just exponentiates. So give us a little bit of that history and probably leading up to where you came back from. You started in Eastern Europe, right? Kind of back to your roots where you had been.
Yes. Well, we got involved we're on 6 continents. I'll back up. So last summer, we launched in Brazil, and that became our 6th continent, which was just like, how in the world did this happen? We're just in awe of where God has taken the significant marriage. And so one of the places that we have just really loved going is Ukraine. We have our largest leadership team other than the United States in Ukraine. We have, I think, about 10 couples who are trained to either lead the seminar or coach couples. And we obviously couldn't go back to Ukraine. But when the day the war broke out, I was in touch with a lot of our alumni and leaders, just trying to get them out of the country or making sure that they were safe. And so one of our couples, we helped them go be with our other leaders. We just literally connected people throughout Europe to get them to a safe place. And so now one of those couples, Dean and Vera, lives in Frankfurt, Germany. And so they hosted a seminar for Ukrainian refugees in Germany. And it was just really amazing to hear their miraculous stories of getting out and how God protected them. And so 2 of those couples are actually going to become leaders with us. So then one wants to stay in Germany and work with refugees. Many will stay. And then one wants to go back and help rebuild Ukraine when the war is over. So that's been just amazing to see happen. We're really involved in Latvia. God just has such cool stories. He has so written this all along the way. I discipled a woman or a teenager here in Indiana back in the 90s. And when we were doing some things in Germany, we invited Yeva. She moved back to Latvia to come and come to the seminar. She fell in love with it. Her husband hadn't been able to come. And she eventually invited us to Latvia. We're on the plane. And Dave looks at me and goes, why are we going to Latvia? Because we had, I think, 4 couples signed up for a seminar, and it was costing us a lot of money to get there. I said, I don't know, but I just know God wants us to go. And so now we were did our 10th seminar in Latvia, and we were in several cities and have 2 wonderful leader couples. So it's just been fun for us to sit back and watch, how God leads and has created the significant marriage.
So this will be interesting for you. The way this all started, it started with one seminar in Germany. Her friend invited us, Lindy invited us to a small town near Frankfurt, Germany, did our first seminar overseas. From that, we went to Paris because someone moved to Paris. From that, we went to Latvia, like she was saying. From that, we went to Berlin. From that, we went to all these other places. So it just grows from one place to the next, to the next, to the next. And now we're in 6 continents. And
yeah, so that's, we just been like.
So Mary's talking about planning. How do you plan that?
But you just lead the seminar and you do that, and it seems that occasionally, God will bring somebody from that seminar who then wants to connect with you and wants to do more. And in fact, you even have an interesting connection in Dallas, don't you? Nick
Vujicic.
Yeah.
Well, but the funny thing about Dallas is the reason we're in Dallas, to backtrack, Lindy, who helped us plant in Germany, is now in Dallas. And so she hosted seminars for us there. And through that, we met a couple named Jason and Jamie, who are part of our leadership team there. They're very close friends with Nick and Kana A. And so they'd been inviting them to come to the seminar for years. And so they were finally able to attend a seminar. And he's been, you talk about a champion, he's just really been a champion for us and believes in the significant marriage and in our message and just wants to encourage us in whatever way he can.
Tell me the name of his ministry again, because I think it's one people will recognize.
Life Without Limbs.
Yeah. People will recognize him as from his messages and being such a motivational speaker without limbs.
Yeah, he was actually just in Latvia while we were there. He was speaking at something while we were there.
Wow.
So yeah, God has just really given him an incredible ministry. Yeah. So we are grateful for his encouragement.
And he's really big in Ukraine.
Wow.
He spent a lot of time there.
Yeah, he's really beloved in a lot of places.
Why is Eastern Europe so hungry for this content?
Because they don't have a lot of resources. So I worked some in Eastern Europe when I was on staff with Young Life. We were based in Vienna, but worked in numerous Eastern European countries. And my grandfather's from Poland, so I have a heart for Eastern Europe anyway. But when you are raised under communism, you're taught to not believe in God. And so often people worked for the state. To be a loyal worker for the state meant you couldn't really choose family. And so there are a lot of couples that are married now, but had parents that really didn't know how to have a loving marriage, and parents that don't know how to be parents because their parents and grandparents were just so focused on survival, or having a job where you could put food on the table. I mean, I remember working in Eastern Europe, and my friends couldn't get bread, they couldn't get milk, and there were just so many things that we take for granted that they could not get, and so and also you weren't allowed to think. The government thought for you. You weren't really able to think for yourself, because if you did, that could be really dangerous if you thought against the state. So they're just still decades later repercussions from that. I just recently wrote a parenting book called A Mother Like Him, and I'd written it a long time ago and laid it down to start focusing on marriage stuff, and I kept getting asked parenting questions when we were in Eastern Europe, because people are struggling to know how to be a loving parent. And so I just started teaching concepts from that, and it so resonated with people that I even taught that seminar. We were in Latvia, A Mother Like Him, and it's really for all parents, dads and moms, but written from a mother's heart and a mother's perspective. If Jesus had been a parent, what would he have been like? So I try to teach those concepts because people in Eastern Europe are just hungry to know how to have a loving marriage, to know how to be a loving parent. And it's going to take still a while for there to be enough resources out there to meet all those needs. I know that there are good resources that are available, but it's probably not enough yet for the need that there is.
Yeah. Well, going back to the design book, because that's really your kind of your capstone, your thing that really sets you apart. I know, Dave, that's kind of your baby.
Right.
Do you want to talk about how you pulled that together and what it does?
Sure. So the basic premise behind that is that the couples work together in that book. So each couple gets 2 workbooks and 1 design book. Okay. So they work together in that design book. And every chapter that we teach, and they finish doing all the exercises and all that, they get a chance to summarize those things in the design book on 1 page. Okay. And then as they're summarizing things, then they also think about the fact that, okay, is this topic somewhat of a struggle for us or not? If it is somewhat of a struggle, maybe that needs to be a priority for us in our marriage. So on page 13, if you go to page 13 in the design book, you can make a note of that in the left-hand column. Say, okay, this might be one of those priorities that I might want to develop plans for, or we might want to. So then as we teach all the different topics, they again continue to summarize in the book, but continue to add to that list of topics, the priorities. Once we have completed teaching all the different topics, then we get to the planning side. And that's where I just do a quick teaching on planning and what it takes to do it. But then they will pick the top 2 priorities and develop plans for those. And they'll develop plans in the last couple pages of the design book. So that now they're walking away with those plans. And then if they wanted to, after the seminar, they can go to our website and download those Excel spreadsheets. So they can do it in Excel. But,
I'm like, oh, but I can see Dave's brilliant analytical mind.
Yeah.
The way he's so beautifully organized
thank you.
the material to make it applicable and usable. And again, that's just God, how he puts both of you together with Mary and writing from a mother's heart and and the biblical, and then Dave, you bringing in the skill set and that organization that you have together.
And people enjoy that because when you do it in Excel, you can color code where you believe you are on that particular priority.
So I like the coloring part.
Right. So if you're slightly behind, then it's yellow. If you're on track, it is green. If you're really behind, it's red. It's not a good color.
Yeah.
So you can color code things, but then it makes you check and adjust. So developing plans is a great thing to do. But if you don't follow up on them, those plans are not worth much. So we teach couples about what it takes to follow up also. And
So
when
you're regularly checking.
you're regular, what we call it is check and adjust, right? You're checking and making adjustments. It's as simple as that. So when they're checking and adjusting, we recommend they do that at least once a month. If you do it twice a month, it's better because you're checking and adjusting more frequently. So it is better. And what we would always say is if you check and adjust once a week, you win the week. You check and adjust every month, you're winning the month. But if you, I'm sorry, I'm saying it backwards. If you check and adjust once a year, you're winning it once a year. Yeah. If you check and adjust once a month, you're winning the month and the year. Mm-hmm. So the frequency does matter, right? So
you don't just let things slide.
Right. We help people understand that because if you don't follow up, you might as well not have developed those plans. Yeah. It's so important.
When we also have a follow-up group. So if couples want to do follow-up, it's about 6-7 weeks, kind of depending on how discussions go. But they actually go back over the curriculum and just kind of hold each other accountable and pray together at the end. And that helps couples to follow through because we all need accountability. Yeah. And it gives you you're in a group with other people who've been through the same thing and you get to hear where someone maybe is stuck or how something has helped, or hear encouragement from a couple. And it's just a good thing to do.
Oh, and I bet as people start developing their plans and seeing their purpose, like you did with the orphanage and On Mission Together, they can really celebrate those wins there too. And a great place for people who decide they might want to take the next step and partner with you and become further involved. A great place to identify those people with potential for that.
Yes.
Yeah. And we love working with churches because we love to help them develop a marriage ministry if they don't have one. If they have one, we'd love to come alongside with them, and we will
Kind of
help.
like a next step.
Right. And we would help train their people in order to be able to use our material for the church and the people in it.
Well, and I know that's what our marriage champions are looking for. They're looking for ways to connect, great curriculum, great resources, just great things like you have. So thank you, David and Mary. Thank you so much for being here. This was just great to get to talk to you.
Thanks
It
for
was
taking
great
the time.
talking with you.
Right.
Thank you so much for giving us the chance to share.
We appreciate that.
Absolutely. And Marriage Champions, if you'd like to find out more about the significant marriage, you can always reach us at marriageinitiative.org.